Welcome to A2Council Update, a recap of the Ann Arbor City Council meeting on May 19, 2025. This meeting included comments and discussion about removing a requirement that neighbors receive notification about land divisions, allocating marijuana excise tax rebate money to local nonprofits, investigating a new system of record keeping for the Ann Arbor Police Department, and adopting the city budget for fiscal year 2026. This is the voting chart for the council meeting on May 19, 2025. There was one split vote on a budget amendment for $50,000 to fund mailers promoting council members to the community. All other agenda items were approved unanimously. You can find detailed information about this meeting at A2Council.com. Like and subscribe if you would like to see more content like this. The meeting included an update from Maura Thompson, Director of the Downtown Development Authority. She spoke about management of parking structures downtown.
We are just about finished with a $1.1 million rooftop fencing replacement projects at 6 of our structures. 5 have been completed. Liberty Square remains to be done, and we anticipate that happening next month.
She discussed plans to add more accessible parking spaces and increase parking rates.
So those PROAG guidelines for on-street spaces require 1 ADA space for every 25 paid spaces on a block perimeter. So we did the analysis of the entire parking area, figured out what we had to add to be in compliance or exceed. To date, we have converted 45 ADA spaces. That first rate increase went into effect last July 1st. Our second rate increase is coming up this July 1st. It will bring parking structure hourly rates to $1.65, our monthly permit rates to $245, and our on-street meter rates to $2.50.
After introductory remarks, public comments, and staff explanations, Council discussed agenda items for almost 90 minutes. 21 people signed up in advance to offer public comments. 16 people spoke to topics on the agenda. This week, the consent agenda included 2 items and expenditures of $200,000. Neither was pulled for discussion, and the consent agenda was approved unanimously. Council considered an ordinance amendment that will remove a requirement for notification to near neighbors when a property owner plans to subdivide land. Under current city law, when a property owner applies for a land division, neighbors within 300 feet are notified by mail. These land divisions are approved administratively, but the notice invites residents to reach out to staff and the Planning Commission to learn more about what is proposed. State law permits local municipalities to set guidelines for approving these land divisions. All requests that meet those local guidelines must be approved. Ann Arbor City Code anticipates the possibility that a requested land division might be denied. If a request is denied, the applicant can appeal to mayoral appointees on the City Planning Commission. This week's proposed amendments will remove the requirement that near neighbors within 300 feet receive notification about a land division. In discussion of the amendment, staff confirmed that land divisions are approved if they meet city requirements.
Land divisions shall be approved if they meet the city's zoning and the city's access requirements. And for this reason, it is simply an administrative process.
Council liaison to the Planning Commission, Lisa Dish, mischaracterized the process, and staff corrected her.
These notifications serve no real purpose in the approval process, and they may cause frustration when people receive a notice, show up for a meeting, speak on an item when neither CPC nor council has any discretion.
We no longer do public hearings. We no longer send them to Planning Commission, and there is no notification that we do for this administrative function.
Councilmember Dish tried to offer more explanation.
How would people become aware of this in the absence of this ordinance section?
I believe that on-site signage is proposed for any kind of development project, regardless whether there's a public hearing or public comment period attached to it or not.
Staff, again, had to clarify.
There would be no notification sent out by the city. They would have to pay attention to what their neighbors are doing, or they would have to be on top of applications that come into the city.
The amendments were approved unanimously at first reading. At a future meeting, they will be the subject of a public hearing and final approval at second reading. Council considered an allocation of $300,000 to community mental health in order to fund substance abuse disorder treatment.
We are able to offer treatment to those not only who can afford it, but those who might not be comfortable asking for it.
The allocation was approved unanimously. Council then considered an allocation of $300,000 to support food distribution services through the local nonprofit Food Gatherers.
Funds provided to a group like Food Gatherers can pay many positive dividends, both immediately and into the future.
The allocation was approved unanimously. Council considered an allocation of $400,000 to several local nonprofits in order to fund shelter diversion, summer programs, and eviction prevention.
The current federal administration has cut funding for AmeriCorps, which provided volunteer staff to a number of Ann Arbor nonprofits.
The federal cuts that we're seeing are unconscionable and immoral, and it's impossible for us to plug the hole here locally with the limited funding that we have.
The allocations were approved unanimously. Council considered a resolution directing the city administrator to investigate an alternative records management system for the city police department. Council explained why the current records management system is inadequate.
It limits how we collect and analyze data, how we evaluate programs, and how we uphold transparency. And if we don't control the data fully, we can't protect it or build public trust.
The resolution was approved unanimously. Without discussion, Council unanimously approved the annexation of a township island on Arlington Boulevard. Without discussion, Council unanimously approved 2 utility easements that will facilitate a development on South Maple. Without discussion, Council unanimously approved fee adjustments across multiple city departments. These fee adjustments are reviewed and updated every year with the annual budget. Finally, Council considered an annual budget for fiscal year 2026. They discussed proposed amendments. This year, the city administrator offered council members $616,000 to allocate through budget amendments. This money came from marijuana excise tax rebate funds. 2 amendments proposed to use these funds. One amendment would direct all of the $616,000 to Rising Hope for Housing. Another amendment would direct $116,000 to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. Earlier in the evening, a public commenter advocating for Rising Hope for Housing spoke to the fact that these 2 budget amendments added up to more money than was available.
It's my understanding that there's a proposition to take a possible $116,000 additional dollars that would be allocated for Rising Hope for Housing for eviction diversion. I don't understand the need to separate it.
Public commenters spoke in support of the funding for Rising Hope for Housing.
Rising Hope has provided the foundation to the necessary benefit of individuals who lack safe and affordable housing.
It took me 3 long and exhausting years to secure an apartment. I've only been out for 4 years, meaning that most of my reentry has been just trying to find a place to call home. That's why Rising Hope matters so deeply to me.
Councilmember Harrison advocated for Rising Hope for Housing.
We invoke vulnerable populations, Black people, low-income residents, workers as justified for zoning reform, density changes, and development incentives. But then the policies passed end up serving the middle and upper middle class, and the people we talked about, they're left behind.
Council discussed how to reconcile the 2 budget amendments.
I'm going to move to amend the amount in the resolve clause from $500,000 to from $616,000 to $565,000.
Councilmember Harrison emphasized again that the marijuana tax rebate money was intended to address harms caused by the criminalization of drugs.
Rising Hope recognizes that criminalization punished poverty, mental illness, survival, and yes, race. But what we're calling everyone now is often code for those who were never harmed in the first place. This is not about denying help to others. It's the point that there's other funding opportunities and grants. This is about whether the people most harmed always have to fight for scraps, even for funds that were meant for them.
Council colleagues responded.
In 2023, these 70% of the recipients of our eviction prevention were actually over 70% were non-white.
Why, during last year's budget process, did we give $250,000 to youth and other money to evictions if that money shouldn't have gone to them?
If you're asking if I suggested that funding shouldn't have gone to the sources that you referenced, let me clarify right here on the record, that is not what I'm saying. You know, it didn't have anything to do with me thinking that what we gave it to last year, that they shouldn't have received it. I'm focused solely on a program that's got the infrastructure.
Councilmember Dish revisited the history of these marijuana tax rebate funds.
All of the things that we have funded historically have fit in the mission that we at one time said we would have for the, I don't know, I guess I was on that, although I'm not sure, for the marijuana money.
She did, in fact, support that 2021 resolution, which directed the marijuana excise tax money to very specific purposes: mental health, substance use disorder, and recovery support, programs for at-risk youth, support for the formerly incarcerated, and other criminal justice reforms. The very next year, Council members Dish, joined by Council members Briggs and Redina, co-sponsored a budget amendment allocating $100,000 of that money to the City Public Works Department for commercial driver's licenses. This week, an allocation of $85,000 in marijuana excise tax funds was removed from the agenda. Council made use of those funds to adjust budget amendment allocations. Council unanimously approved changes reducing the amount allocated to Rising Hope for Housing for a total of $565,000. Council unanimously approved changes increasing the amount allocated to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission for a total of $136,000. Both budget amendments were approved unanimously. Council then considered a budget amendment for quick build projects in order to reconfigure and remove traffic lanes on multi-lane roads. $500,000 would be taken from budget currently allocated to preventative road maintenance. Earlier in the evening, public commenters spoke to the amendment, specifically emphasizing their wish for changes to Stadium Boulevard.
Stadium Boulevard is one road that we do manage, and I hope some of these quick build funds will be used there.
My baby is just getting to the age where I'm excited to start biking with him in a trailer. Getting across town on Stadium feels, frankly, irresponsible. And if an avid biker like me is so nervous, reducing our reliance on cars as a city seems like a distant dream. I would further encourage the city to prioritize spending this money on quick build projects ASAP, for instance, on a stadium road diet.
I live near West Stadium. It is designed to move cars, not as a place to exist outside of a car.
I do not own a car, so I bicycle and walk almost everywhere. Cyclists and pedestrians don't just deserve alternate routes that are nominally safer, but not efficient and comfortable.
We want you to please approve Amendment 2 to fund quick build safety improvements for streets in Ann Arbor like Stadium and to slow traffic there.
We don't really follow Vision Zero. We don't do the engineering, we don't do the evaluation, sightlines, lighting at crosswalks, sidewalks on new developments. We need to be doing a crash analysis.
Council expressed their support for the amendment.
There isn't any funding to move our quick build safety projects forward on our major roads.
The reconfiguration evaluation study that we just approved funding for is to analyze and identify opportunities to reprioritize roadway space.
One council member referred to a research study.
These types of projects make streets more desirable for businesses because more people of varying modes of transportation can be their customers. In 8 of the 10 communities that were studied, property values across the city went up as well.
I really like the points that Councilmember Cornell made about economic development, because North Main is a place where things come and go, and it's not a nice place to walk. And it's certainly not a nice place to bike.
We've heard calls for Stadium and the reconfiguration of that. And selfishly, I It is one of the ones that I would love to see reconfigured first.
I do my best. I do things that you're not supposed to do as a cyclist, like ride on the sidewalk on Huron, very slowly and carefully because I don't feel safe being in the road.
This statement actually contradicts both state law and information published on the city's own website. State law specifically permits the use of a bicycle on a sidewalk. Under the headline, Biking Safely, the City of Ann Arbor emphasizes that cyclists have a right to use the sidewalk. The amendment, shifting $500,000 from road maintenance to quick build projects on multi-lane roads, was approved unanimously. Another amendment did not specifically allocate money, but prohibited the use of city budget to purchase drones.
The use of technology that potentially has risk for inaccuracy or invasion of privacy should really be made, those decisions should be made that involve the community, and with decreasing potential harm as much as possible.
It was approved unanimously. Council then considered a budget amendment taking $50,000 from general fund balance to pay for mailers promoting council members to the community. Last year, Council approved this as a new expenditure, allocating $100,000. In the last 6 weeks, residents in 4 wards have received mailers. A 5th one is about to be sent. The mailers feature photos of council members and the mayor, lists of their accomplishments, and other information. Earlier in the evening, a public commenter spoke to the issue.
I was shocked to see that Council Member Iyer is once again asking taxpayers to shell out big bucks for what amounts to campaign literature. She is asking for another $50,000 for what she calls equitable communications to the community. I object to my tax dollars being used in this way.
Councilmember Iyer introduced the budget amendment and compared local leaders to state-level leaders.
This funding will ensure that any unspent funds from last year's communications effort are carried forward, and that we have the ability to send a second round of citywide mailings in the budget year ahead. Our state legislators send similar taxpayer-funded mailers to constituents on a regular basis, updating us on their legislative initiatives.
The use of mailers to reach constituents is slightly different at the state level. This is the size of state legislative districts around Ann Arbor. A member of the state legislature represents constituents across large geographic areas, approximately 77 to 91,000 people. These are the 5 city council member districts. A council member represents constituents across limited areas of the city, approximately 25,000 people.
I found it challenging to figure out how to put a link to a city webpage on a paper flyer, so I did offer instructions how to Google on our flyer.
Today's information environment is very challenging, and it requires multiple channels to kind of have an opportunity to get through to people.
We don't have staffs to affect communication to residents. We don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars, our own personal, office budgets to affect this kind of communication.
It is true that apart from $5,000 in annual travel budget for each member and this new budget for mailers, council members do not have personal office budgets. However, since the recent explosion of money in local campaigns, council members regularly hire staff and consultants. Tens of thousands of dollars from outside the city and from political action committees now help fund staff and consultants for the mayor and current council members. Mayor Taylor and 5 council members are up for re-election next year. In 2022 elections, Taylor and those 5 allies spent $50,000 on staff and consultants across coordinated campaigns with $250,000 in total expenditures. Current members Aisha Ghazi-Edwin and Chris Watson spent $13,000 on consultants for campaigns that were uncontested. They had no opponents. In 2023, a full year before her re-election campaign, Councilmember Dish began paying thousands to consultants. In 2024, Dish ran uncontested for re-election. She had no opponent, but spent over $13,000 on consultants. In uncontested elections of 2024, incumbent council members spent over $40,000 on consultants and staff. This week, Jen Iyer explained how few people are engaged in the low turnout August primaries that elect council members.
Campaign mailers only go to a narrow group, mostly Democrats who are frequent voters. These city mailers are different. They go to every household in Ann Arbor, no matter your political affiliation or how you vote.
With only council members Briggs and Watson voting against, council approved the allocation of $50,000 to fund mailers promoting council members across the whole community. The meeting adjourned just after 10 p.m., with only one additional public commenter. For more information about this meeting, visit A2Council.com.
Welcome to this week's A2Council Moment of Zen.
Are there communications from council? Oh. I love to hear from you, but really, honestly, not that much. May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by.
So, this gentleman here wanted, he was not here when they called his name. He's on the list. Can he, that's not?
That's not.
Okay. Okay.
Regrettably.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Cornell. Dish. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.